What is going on, Busy Bariatrics, and welcome to another episode of the Busy Bariatric Podcast. I am so excited to bring you our guest today. It is Ryan Turner. Ryan is an amazing registered dietitian who I have come across on the internet, and I have just always enjoyed not just his content, but his take on how to manage nutrition and everything in between, from men's health, muscle building, protein. I had like 18 different topics for Ryan to do. So we're just going to kind of go free base and do everything there. Ryan, welcome to the show, and tell us, how did you become a registered dietitian?
Oh man, thank you so much. I am always tickled just to be invited and speak with you and anybody else. But I am a registered dietitian. It was like a second career for me. So I had originally graduated and gone into healthcare consulting. It was not really, I was not seeking it out. It was a family friend that had helped me get a position at a really great company. And, I really saw the side of healthcare really from the research side and how it was implemented in hospitals, and really what I was doing. It was a best practice research company. And then we would sell the research, right? What's that hospital doing over there? Why are they so good? Let's figure it out and let's tell everyone else how to do it and then charge them money for it. That's basically what it was. But the one thing that I kept looking back at, right, outside of like cardiology and even nursing and oncology, right, imaging, all those things, the one thing was there just never was much on the prevention side. And, I think just being an athlete growing up, I played soccer, lacrosse. I was always just a great runner.
The exact opposite of my athletic career, which was offensive lineman, shot putter, where it's like power strength, no more than 5 yards in front of me for a sprint.
I feel like anything track and field always intimidated me because it was just all these explosive moves. And I wasn't an explosive player. I was that athlete that could just like outrun someone until they tired out, and they'd be like, okay, goodbye, I'm going to go do what I got to do,
Endurance.
Yeah, I was never able to put myself in a position where I was just that explosive. So I wouldn't have done well in some of those sports. Probably I think you'd connect with this though. I feel like a lot of what you did as an athlete, like you were around food, you knew you had to eat, you had to drink water, you had to do all these things. And it kind of became second nature at some point, whether you ended up in a a more healthful type of lifestyle after or not. I think it's something where you're always thinking about it when you're younger as an athlete. And at some point, I think it did become like, okay, everybody knows this. But then I think slowly, as I was in the healthcare space and I saw what was going on, and then I would ask questions. I would ask the researchers, okay, in oncology, I see what happened, but how did they get there? Like, what was going on? Or, a lot of times I would say that, obesity was something that we would see a lot of times in research, and it would lead to certain outcomes. And okay, great, that's the outcome, but how do we get there? Like, what was really going on? And there was never a prevention talk. It was always like, well, we're here now, let's fix it. And it's like, okay, but is that fixing it? And so that was always kind of like my question. I was like, okay, maybe you don't know about the nutrition side. I didn't know much either. I was just like, we eat, this is healthful, like all those kind of things. But when I kind of realized the disconnect of healthcare, where my head was at, and then I started to see where maybe a bridge could be really formed, I was like, let's go back to school and do this. Let's make it a thing. So I moved from DC up to New York, and I'm originally from Jersey, so it's not extremely new, but New York was never a thing. But
how did I not know that? What part of Jersey?
I was West Jersey, so I was like Northwest Jersey, like over in the sticks.
You claim Northwest Jersey. As a South Jersey, we really just go north-south. So the Northwest New Jersey is its own range.
Well, my brother lives in Central Jersey, which I don't know where that discussion goes.
Debatable.
Yeah, exactly.
Debatable.
Yeah.
It's funny, the other Rob in the bariatric community, Rob Motivation, is from Central Jersey, and he claims it exists. And I'm like, no, like South Jersey people, it's like north of Trenton, south of Trenton, and that's the exact line. And then there's like 50 grades of shade. 50 shades of gray, I feel, for north of Trenton. But like everything south of Trenton is just like, it's South Jersey. It's like we have Atlantic City, the Pine Barrens, and the bridge that goes to Philadelphia, and that's it.
Totally. I grew up in Jersey. I was there for so long. I did not know Jersey well, to be completely honest with you. Like everyone's like, oh, they would like throw out the exit joke to me. I'd be like, I don't really know, to be honest. So I'm like, I'm on the other side of the state anyway. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, back in New York, and then had decided to go back to school, and then applied to NYU and got in their clinical nutrition program, really knowing the whole time that I really wanted to go into sports nutrition, which, fast forward, that's now what I specialize in. But, when you go back to school to become a dietitian and you already have a degree, you can go through these coordinated programs where you go through a lot of your undergrad classes again, and then you start taking like master's classes during that time. And so it's just a lot of movement. And then you have your internship, and you have to fill so many hours in the hospital. And then you see a lot of things in the hospital. You're like, wait, is this what I want to do? I don't really know. And it's a big whirlwind moment. So there's a lot of self-navigating, which you have to do in any career. But I think a lot of what I can look back on now, if there was a young dietitian asking me for some advice about what to do, what to look out for, if they told me what they want to do, I'd be like, you are your best advocate. Don't think that the advice being given to you is really for you, because the advice I was given in terms of like following through at NYU for my master's and stuff like that, it really wasn't the best advice, to be completely honest with you. But then again, I did know what the better decision was, but I didn't do it. So it's really on me at the end. But anyway, I am where I am now. So,
But I will say, like, you have this general theme of that story that I really like is you question the why and you don't necessarily subscribe to dogma, which I think are like two very important tenets, I think, when it comes to nutrition is it's not just that we have to hit a protein goal. It's not just that we have to hit X amount of calories if we want results. It's we really need to understand the why of both of those. And more importantly, that there isn't one strict way to do it. And I think that's really important. In your experience, like as a dietitian, how important is it to really like build variety around plans for your clients?
it's incredibly important. I would say almost so important that creating a plan can really close off a lot of conversation and understanding about what someone has to do. And by that, what I mean is everybody or many people will say, okay, we're going to work together. I'm going to walk away with a meal plan, right? And my answer, like in that moment, in like either a sales call or wanting to get somebody's respect or just kind of being able to like, bring them in, my answer wants to be yes, you will. You will walk away with a meal plan. And I'm not lying. But the idea here is that I'm not giving you as much of a meal plan. And I have access to all of my software. I can press a button for the macros you need for everything. That's not the hard part. The hard part is how we're going to implement it. So the answer is like, yeah, you'll get a meal plan. But if you think that that is your solution, then you likely are going to be moving in the wrong direction with me right now. Which, you can kind of uncover those things. But that's a hard conversation for some people up front.
I think a lot of the times when people think of registered dietitians or they think of working with someone for nutrition coaching, it's that idea of like, you just tell me what to do and I'll do it, and that'll get the weight off. And I think every dietitian can absolutely build a program that does that. But I think almost every dietitian would agree, well, what happens when you come off that plan? What happens when the holidays come around? What happens when you build a family? Like the plan is only as good as the flexibility around it. And I think the main thing is how do you build almost like templates or habits that are going to work at every point of your life? So what are some ways that like people can start to build habits around nutrition or kind of start to get an idea of how to build a lifestyle that works for them when it comes to nutrition?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I feel like, I'm big on the education piece first and foremost. So I'm always going to want to make sure that someone just has that general understanding of, general healthful nutrition. What does it mean? What doesn't something mean? Where can we just keep our eyes? If I was really working with someone and I'm going to listen to what they're doing, I do want to really quickly just feel out, do you know what calories and macronutrients are? Not that we have to talk about them. I just want to know, do you know those words? Are you scared of those words? When I say these, are you confused? When I say protein, do you think I mean carnivore? When I say fat, do you think I mean that you're going to gain fat so it's like that conversation always really that's always going to come in first when I'm talking with someone. Here's two things though. One, I love people to understand if someone has a good understanding of calories and macronutrients, I like to discuss thresholds. And it comes down to this where I say, I don't really care how you get there, but here is where we have to get to, right? So when it comes to a lot of my clients are very active and they want to build muscle, they want body recomposition, they want to lose body fat still, they want to stay lean. And so I like to teach thresholds. So it's not if, we need to make sure that you're going to get, this amount of calories because that past meal plan said that, or you burn that many calories in a class. This is your threshold for what muscle building is, right? So like Dr. Brad Schoenfeld is a great individual to be looking up. If you've ever, he is like the godfather of all things muscle building. Great research that he's really putting out there. But what he's been able to do over the course of his career is he's been able to really show us, you're not really going to build muscle unless you're getting up above these thresholds across time. And so some of those things will be like, okay, from protein, well, the research shows that if we're not hitting somewhere between, 0.76 to 1 grams of protein per pound, well, we have to be there. But also, wait, did you just think that you had to be at 1? Maybe that's why you were having a hard time getting leaner, because you thought you had to be at 1 gram of protein per pound. So those thresholds are helpful to know at the high end and the low end. Even when it comes to something like carbohydrate, right? We want to make sure that we're going to be at that point of at least, I think it's 1.46. Just my notes aren't right in front of me, but it's like 1.46.
We won't hold it against you if you're. It's actually 1.45. So Brian, this is where we end the episode. I appreciate everything you do.
That's good. But that's just like, making sure that we're talking about that. Okay, you're scared of it. You're thinking it's too much carbohydrate, because most of the time that carb level is going to bring us up above 200 grams. Most of the time, most individuals I definitely work with. And that 200 number scares people. So I'm like, but let's go back to the research.
In the bariatric community, I think because we consume so much of our knowledge and information is what we see on podcasts or what we see on the internet, after our surgical centers kind of get us to a point, we have this weird relationship where we see a lot of low carb options thriving or driving a lot of people in the community's success.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever anyone says like, oh, even something as simple as like 80 grams of carb, and even if you said like, I want you to get it from like potatoes and vegetables, can absolutely freak out people. But I think some of the best success I've had is when I actually upped my carbs. I feel better, I move better, I perform better in the gym, and I end up losing weight when I incorporate, more of a balanced approach to it.
Yeah. It's incredibly true that is the outcome. And so many people, they hear it, but people become very resistant to accepting it in their head. So what I like to do is we'll go over this threshold discussion, and I have one more step after this that makes it even easier for my people. I always like to just challenge people, and I say, prove me wrong, number one, right? And I always like to ask, and I less times like to ask, okay, what was the benefit? What was this great outcome that you ended up seeing? I ask, what was the detriment? Because a lack of detriments really means that we're working towards a positive outcome. So when I end up asking people that, okay, you were scared. Okay, what happened, right? You walked in that dark room. Did you just get stabbed? No, you're fine, right? That doesn't work as well with my 3-year-old as much as it does with maybe an adult, but that's like, it's just
You'd
about
be amazed.
Who's stabbing me down. What a dark joke. But I always like to just push people that way, because even with my individuals, I work with, I think being like specializing in sports nutrition, what you end up seeing more of if you're not working in the professional sports space, because you will see this also in the collegiate space, is you will find most individuals that are living a lean lifestyle already, they tend to err on the side of under eating. And then that's where on the outside, you see this very lean, ripped individual. But when you really get down and talk to them, they're usually binge eating. They're very unsure about what they're doing. Whatever they're doing, they know is not sustainable. and they're just looking for a little bit of support. And a lot of times it's something where, there can be a deeper eating disorder. There could be something that's going on that they don't even know about. They don't understand why they're losing hair, right? And then that, I think, is almost very in line with, I think, the bariatric community where,
100%.
where, people are like, well, I'm really low energy. It's like, you've never felt energy, so you might not even know what it means to be there. And then people feel energy for the first time. They're like, wait, hold on. I was able to lift, feel good, recover pretty quickly, get back to the workout. It's like, that gives me like goosebumps when I think about someone getting to that point. And it's amazing. So that threshold conversation, making sure I ask about detriments, challenging people, I think is huge. One last part of that where I try and make it easy from a macro standpoint is most people, I'm like, just do a quick check for me. I say 1.5, 1.5. If you can look at your food and you can tell me, go ahead and track your food. Most of my people are already doing that, right? Tell me that you are getting to 1.5, 1.5. 1.5 grams of carb, very scary number for some people. 1 gram of protein per pound and 0.5 grams of fat. It's a quick, really like kind of pulled off the street, tell me what to do. Well, go check yourself on that first. Most of the time for active individuals, and I'm going to say again, for most of the time for active individuals, people looking to, build muscle, move more, it's a quick check that I think people remember quickly. And if you look at that, it can put you at the higher end of calorie, but it is a very fast thing for me to say, okay, well, where's the gap? Because if you are very low in fat or you're very high in protein, and there's going to be some challenges around that. But that's usually a really quick check for me to kind of know what's really going on. But that's like the deep end of things. That's like what I know I like to teach around the calories and macros. But I have an easier way. And this came from, and you actually gave me a really good reminder before we started talking again, before we press record.
That's where all the good podcast stuff comes. As you're regathering your thoughts, I always guilty pleasure squirrel moment right now. I think some of the best parts of every podcast is what never makes it onto it. It's the stuff before you hit record and after you get done. My goal is eventually to have a whole 3-hour session of all those sections put together as the greatest clip show ever. Because I always feel like that's where the fun.
Do it. I was mentioning to you before that I started a podcast. Now we have a daily podcast, and it's mainly it's with dads, and there's what we have is the daily dad, and so it's like a 30 minutes in the morning. But we have a longer form aspect of it, which is like the conversation with other dads. But whenever I get on now, and it started a while ago because I was doing the nutrition podcast a ton. It's still there, just on the back burner a little bit, but I always said, okay, we just got on. I'm hitting record if you don't mind, because this is the good stuff. So I would always go right at it, because I was like, we're just gonna talk. Like, this is it. We're talking about it. You can't really get away from parenting and dadhood and all that kind of stuff. But let me ground myself back on that side that you reminded me of, is that I love, and maybe this is a little bit of a fault, I love trying to find the underserved populations.
Hi.
Exactly, right? And so I know that you can definitely connect with that. But there was one underserved population that connected, personally with me, professionally too, and that was the adult ADHD community.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether someone listening may end up believing that the whole adult ADHD side of things is, raging because it's trendy. Well, I'd say maybe part of it, some of it. But it's also, I think, incredibly inspiring to watch people understand themselves so much better and finally be able to kind of put some parts of themselves out there. People are more comfortable understanding their bodies and their brains a little bit more. But the adult ADHD side, from a nutrition standpoint, like everything ADHD is really still very much focused on children. And there's not a lot of research on adults. And so what I found when I started to go through my own diagnosis and talk with my therapists, is that, wow, a lot of my other clients, I would go back through my all of my files, and I'd be like, okay, well, I see that medication they're on. Okay, they're diagnosed with ADHD. And I would go back and I would think for a minute, and I'd think about the challenges that person had and how they approach things, and maybe how they had a hard time even sticking with it. Like, we would meet weekly. They still had a hard time sticking with their goals, right? And when I would maybe go back to them because I started to go back to some of my old clients just to ask them, be like, hey, this is my interest. I'm just curious. What we did was this. What wasn't working? What did work? What worked for specifically you and a mind that is, like looking for, dopamine. It's looking for excitement. It's looking for change. It's looking for competition. It's looking for all things around. I'm just forgetting one word right now that I want to say. I always get nuance. It's not nuance that I want, but just the ADHD brain just craves new ideas. It craves
Yeah.
a switch. It craves
Right.
something new. And so it was really hard to keep teaching someone about like, okay, well, here's the macronutrients. Let's do this. Let's hit on fiber. I mean, it was boring for me at some aspects too. And so I started to think about ways that I can maybe help that type of community. And I actually was thinking about it. And I had a client who does not fall into this category of people. He was not diagnosed with anything like ADHD, and he didn't even have any challenges. But I had developed a way of kind of giving this community a way of thinking about food that really just encompassed everything that they probably needed to. And then we could refine down if necessary. But I called it, this isn't so much of a sales pitch, it's not, but I called it.
Honestly, make the sales pitch, because I will outright tell you, for those of you who don't know, Ryan was part of my second year summer camp. When he pitched what he's about to say, it was a light bulb moment for about a quarter of my clients of it finally got it. Sorry to jump on your point, but
No.
I'm excited for this.
No, I'm so happy it did. And it's something that I am excited about. And it wasn't really meant for me to keep building on it, but I did, and I love where it's going. But right now I've developed, a way of thinking is what I'll call it, not so much of a program, but I call it Habit 24, because what I was trying to figure out is we have to remember that individuals, whether it's someone that is struggling with a, working memory, whether it is a challenge in, mood regulation, whether it's a challenge in focus, attention, any of those things, people need a different way to think about it. And, other people that I was like, okay, well, where else could this work? Well, busy professionals, busy parents, right? People who don't any longer want to track calories and macros for the rest of their life, although it still is like calories still exist, macros still exist. But I called it Habit 24 because I was looking at a way, I was looking through research and I was thinking, okay, how can we just boil this down very quickly? And I said, okay, the best health outcomes that we can find for individuals are going to be usually around, muscle health. It's going to be around taking in fiber on all those things. Well, there's really good research that shows around like 600 to 800 grams or about 24 ounces of vegetable and fruit in any combination, right, is really leading to lower all-cause mortality in these larger populations that they were studying. And then also, right, it was reducing risks of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. These individuals in these populations that were eating up to those amounts, they were also leaner, right? So body fat ended up being in healthier areas. Why wouldn't we do that? And so I'm trying to, okay, so I can tell someone, okay, let's eat this soluble fiber and that. Okay, I just need you to eat 24 ounces of vegetables and fruits. But someone still might be like, what does that mean? Okay, well, this is what I'm going to challenge you to do. Don't use a food scale. Walk into a store. Just walk into a store. Everything is going to be labeled in ounces, at least in our country here. You're going to see it. It's right on the package. So if I ask you, I need you to eat 24 ounces of vegetables and fruits in a day, please go ahead and do that. If you really look at what that is, that's like just walk into the store, please, and go buy 10 pounds for the week. 10 pounds of vegetables and fruits. It sounds like a lot. It's not as much as you think. It really isn't. And so,
can I just hop in here because I absolutely love this, and as someone who I always get put in the bariatric community that everyone's like, oh, Rob is going to advocate you need to track macros, you need to do all this. When Ryan pitched this to my clients, there are some people who tracking does not necessarily work, or it's just not their proper vibe. This completely connected because they're like, oh, I just need a bag of broccoli a day, and if I put some in my lunch, some in my dinner, that would work because it's right there. It's 24 ounces. Yeah, works perfect. I had other clients who were flat out wait, the macros aren't going to work for this. I'm like, no, I promise you. And it became this fun game. almost everyone at every caloric range was like, oh my God, it works. And I'm like, yeah, it's really, really simple. And I think, you come from a wide range of, yes, if you have sports performance and you are getting at that higher collegiate and athletic level, do you need a very prescribed level of macro? I think we could both agree that it would be more beneficial at the very least. But I think for the common lay person who is just trying to lift in the gym 3 to 4 days a week, fit in a bathing suit in summertime, and live a healthy lifestyle, Habit 24 was such a game changer for some of my clients because they're like, well, do I have to track anymore? I'm like, if this is working for you, like, fine. And we got amazing results from some clients. So I probably owe you a nickel somewhere in residuals for that.
No, it's good. You know what? I just have to get it trademarked and then I'll come back around.
You really do. I will be the first to buy your license when you do.
No, but I am very excited about it. And I probably ran through like at least 100 different meal plans with all the software that I have that I can just press a button and it makes it, right? So I did it. And most of the time, and this might sound like a really wide range of things because even with protein, it was coming out to like 110 to 180 grams of protein. But if we get someone just to start eating that way, and the question of, well, what do I do? Well, just if you know what protein is, just go eat 24 ounces right now. And I think like once someone understands how to do it, it works. And then once they start doing it, then you can get into some of the nuance. Okay, well, I understand 110 grams of protein is not going to be working as great for you because maybe we do need to make sure that we're going to not eat the fattiest cuts of protein. And that's okay, right? That's not so much of an issue. We can choose to eat higher omega-3, right? We can still stick with, if someone decides to, they can probably still, intermittent fast in some kind of way if they wanted to, because really the goal is just 24 ounces in a day of protein and fiber. So if that's what that's what you decide to do, great. And I think it's very welcoming for some people as well. And I found that it worked. And the biggest thing is that it was evidence-based. Right. So it was matching up with the thresholds with Brad Schoenfeld. It was matching up with the thresholds that we were seeing within the population, the cohort research that we were really seeing. And we know the cohort research isn't the strongest research, but, the outcomes and the studies that they were really looking at was definitely pretty profound.
And Ryan, I love so much of that is I had clients who are like, this isn't going to work. And I go back to what you started with the prove me wrong. And I even went one extra spice level because I'm evil. I was like, do me a favor. I lean into my villain level as a coach. I'm like, do me a solid. Eat 24 ounces of a protein of your choosing, 24 ounces of fruit and vegetable throughout the day. And after you hit that number, eat what you feel you are comfortable with. And it was like a bad like YouTube sensation. Like I'd have clients like at 3:00, like I'm only at like 12 ounces of fruit and I'm at like 12 ounces of chicken and I'm stuffed. I'm like, yeah, congratulations. And I think it's just so many times we overwork these overcomplicated algorithms or formulas and stuff where it's like sometimes simplification of just like get 24 ounces of fruit and vegetables, 24 ounces of leaner proteins, because I had a client who then was like, well, I want to eat 24 ounces of ribeye. Will that work? I'm like, if that's the only cut of protein you're going to have for the day, let's see how the rest of that happens. But you have to get your 24 ounces of vegetables too. And he was surprised and like, yeah, I broke it to 2 meals and I was pretty much done for the rest of the day. And I'm like, there, perfect.
See, and it works with, somewhat of the carnivore crowd sometimes as well. We're actually running this right now in a dad's group, and we're really focusing. We're taking it slow, but we're mainly just doing the 24 ounces of vegetable and fruit. And, I think that I think it's eye-opening for some people and be like, okay, well, one, I wasn't eating as much as I thought I was, plus the 24 ounces isn't as much as I thought it was. And now I can definitely do this a lot easier just from a mental standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Which is definitely great. You also just reminded me of something that's really important is that usually with the Habit 24 is that we do want to make sure that we know like nothing is restricted, right? But again, that's the nuance of it. Okay, nothing is restricted. Go show me you can do it. Okay, you just downed a bunch of Dove bars. Let's just talk about this. Like, but it opens up the door. And just to round that out, because I want to move on from it a little bit, but the 24, I always say 24 ounces of hydrating fluids 4 times a day and 2,400 steps 4 times a day. it brings in the other aspects of movement. It's just like, look, we can definitely do this. And I think that again, talking through it, nuance is definitely good. But this is the more important part that I want to get to, is that Habit 24 isn't the catch-all. It's not going to be the thing that's going to, solve everyone's problem. But what I love about it the most is this, is that one, it's inviting, people are going to go into it. But from Habit 24, most of the time it does open up the door for someone who wants to refine their nutrition more. So now they're a little bit more open to actually looking at calories and macros, which is great. Or some people that are looking to get away from calories and macros, then you can move that way. So it's almost like I found that it's like on this spectrum of results for people and mindset for people too. It's like, okay, well, you know what? I think that as we get into the warmer months and we want to lean out, I think we're going to go back into part of the programming that I do. One is called the calorie and macro Kickstarter that I have. It's just teaching people calories and macros, keeping them accountable. And then when we get away from that, you want to back off a little bit. Well, then let's just go back to the Habit 24 area, which is awesome. And so implement it where you definitely want to. But that is how I think we can make things so much easier for people. I think I was also tired of just saying, just eat protein and fiber. And someone's like, well, how much? What do I do? I was like, I'm done talking. Here, 24 ounces. So, but it was good.
I think the best teachers, and I will blatantly pat myself on the back, is most of my coaching style or what I've recorded and made content for are subjects I'm tired of answering over and over again. And I'm like, well, what if I taught it as concisely as possible? I recorded it and was able to flip it. Or how can I simplify this so that even if I collapse tomorrow, someone could pick this up and see it. And I think that's the sign of good teaching, is it's not overcomplicated, but it really does cover hydration, which is so important for bariatric patients, incorporating protein and fiber and movement. Like, it's really everything you kind of need to do after bariatric surgery in certain portions. And obviously, first 3 months after bariatric surgery are going to look a lot different than the first 3 years after bariatric surgery. But I think for people who are struggling with either getting into macros or have felt like, I've been tracking for 2 years, I'm done, it's a good round of the curve if people are watching this online. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think what I also like, I know we said we want to get away from it, but I like that there is, and I've been trying to refine this to give a second layer to all aspects of it. Like with 24 ounces of vegetables and fruit, well, what's the next step we can do? I love the prebiotic and probiotic conversation. Okay, so now you just nailed the prebiotic side of it. Let's start bringing in some probiotic. And then that is a great discussion about gut health. Done. Awesome. It's working. That's a lead into some other kind of protein, right? Because a lot of our probiotic foods, right? So just to make sure that, prebiotics are the vegetables and fruits, the fiber, and specifically the soluble fiber. And that's even a discussion, which fruits are going to be the best for soluble fiber. I always say, okay, 24 ounces. Well, which vegetables? Well, carrots, asparagus, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. I'll always go towards that. The fruits, right? Someone's like, well, which fruits should I focus on? Well, the higher soluble fiber ones. So I always tell someone to make sure that they're getting, mango, berries, oranges, apricots, when they're available. Those are always great, right? Those are a little bit out of season sometimes. And then I always tell someone at least one meal with beans, oats, or potato. And someone's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. All you got to do. But now let's make sure that we're going to, put this to work even better. So now let's actually, we're feeding those little bugs, the gut bugs that are going to be in your body. But let's make sure that we're keeping it, we're thriving. So let's now introduce some of these probiotics, and that's layer 2. Same thing with the protein. Well, what's layer 2 of protein? Well, layer 2 of protein is, the omega-3 discussion, right? Omega-3 versus omega-6. We're going to start talking more about micronutrients. We have zinc, we have iron we can get into, right? And then that can go into hydration. Now we're talking about, electrolytes. Okay, hydration. Well, what should we focus on besides water? Awesome, we're there. Okay, now that we have that down, now we're walking. Okay, what's the second layer of walking? Well, can we get some resistance training in, right? So it really does lead into everything else, which I think is just, incredible, and it's really good. Just good outcomes. And it's just been exciting. So that's been the biggest thing.
Absolutely. So, Brian, I think for a lot of people in the bariatric community, they get all this information and they know it's important and they know it's good and they know that we're knowledgeable with it. There is a struggle with starting. as far as like with the overwhelm that can sometimes come with so much information or stuff, starting with like a step goal and just a protein count, what are some techniques that you can help people who are like considering tracking, getting into tracking, or really kind of saying like, you know what, I want to dial in my nutrition?
The first thing that comes to my head, knowing people have come to me with that before, I want to track, but I know it's hard. I don't think I'm going to stick with it. I think the thing that gets a lot of people when we are talking specifically about food tracking is that sometimes the actual, platform someone's using, the app that they're using, right, ends up not being helpful. They're like, well, my friend used MyFitnessPal. I have to use MyFitnessPal. I'm like, you don't have to. You can use something else. And so, like, I always tell people my favorite app, the one that I find is that, the friendliest has always been Lose It. I hate the name, but I always say Lose It is kind of number one. So that, like, using that is good. But I also I have my note cards. I keep note cards in my pocket in terms of like what I end up doing for the day. This is them right here, right? So like these are like, this is what's going on for the day. I'm tracking my food, my ounces right here, but it goes in my pocket. That to me, that's the easiest thing. Don't even use your phone. Don't even use an app. Honestly, like just get back to the basics if you really need to do it that way. But I think that is the way that you can definitely support someone, is just by, okay, if you are bought into food tracking, look for an easier way to do it, right? That is what I always want to make sure people do. I always come back to it. And even in the group of like dads that we're with now, a lot of them, like they're pulling out notebooks now and they're just taking pictures. Could we take a picture just to kind of prove that we're doing it? And they're all just using notebooks too. I'm like, let's keep doing that. Don't even use the apps anymore. So
Can we just talk about like a little bit of the writing component for men? Because I think there are stigmas when it comes to journaling in men, or at least for me as someone of a certain age. The idea of journaling, I always assumed was like this Dear Diary, or I had to have like music on in the background and I was like typing out almost like a Doogie Howser document to date my, like it was always like this big introspective thing. But I think for a lot of men, journaling can be something as simple as like I'm writing out what I'm eating or what I have to do the next day. Or it's just this, I don't know, like I find like as I get older, I actually do just like putting pen to paper and manifesting a bit with that. Have you noticed that for dads that like there's a little bit of a stigma or how to get started with journaling and writing?
man, it is, I think just anything that's attached to emotion can make a man question whether they should be doing it, shouldn't they be doing it, whatever's going on. I think journaling kind of falls underneath that. So I've found is that, I'm part of a pretty tight community of people that I would say are very vulnerable. Um,
It's awesome.
it's been pretty cool that there's been a lot of dads in there. And so I think I've been incredibly grateful to have these men that we talk with we talk with every single morning. And we start talking about gratitude. And so I think gratitude is a very good jumping off point for a lot of people just to start to get into, I think, reflection. And then if you want to start writing it down, start writing it down. But the research behind gratitude and sharing gratitude, thinking about things that you're grateful for, it's so incredibly strong around mood and mindset and outcomes that it's hard to not want to push someone towards that. And so if somebody wants to start journaling, you don't have to write it down. Just in your head in the morning, go ahead and just tell me something that you're grateful for. The other thing is, if we want to use a tool, I know one thing that a bunch of the dads and we're doing, and I don't want to wrap all these dads into the one thing we're doing and that's the answer, but if anyone is familiar with,
I will say, if only so that other people see a template, is what I will say. It always helps to share.
yeah, it definitely does. I hear that. One thing that's helped, I think, a lot of guys is that if you're familiar with Ryan Holiday.
Yep. Love
So
him.
Ryan Holiday, he is, a master of stoicism, right? He writes basically writes from a place of stoicism and modern psychology. And there's like one more thing I always forget that my friend reminds me of. Practical wisdom is the other one.
Yes.
So he, like, that's where he writes from. And a lot of his stuff is just like based on Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and all that kind of stuff too. But he wrote a book that was called the Daily Stoic. And the Daily Stoic had come with a notebook, and you would write things down, every single day and whatnot. And a lot of people, I think, connect with that. I never picked up that book, but the book I did pick up was what was recommended to me was the Daily Dad. And the Daily Dad is the same thing as a Daily Stoic. It's 1 page a day. It's 1 page a day that he calls it a meditation. And it's a page a day, and each month is a different theme. Like this month right now, it's all about gratitude. And the month before that was how to help your kids explore and read, basically. And I think the first month we did was like back in June, is about like how to be healthy yourself to have your children start to become healthier too. But why I'm saying this is because the practice of reading every morning, with or without a group, I think was a great way just to kind of ground yourself for a second and start reflecting. And I think slowly, I know I did, and other dads did at least, you'd start writing in the margins. You'd start writing something, you'd underline something. Something would connect, and then you'd write down a memory. You'd write down something, and then all of a sudden it's like, I wrote this down. I just want to read it out, right? This is just something my dad did. I can't believe I remembered this. It's crazy. And so people start talking about it, and then all of a sudden people would start to want to share, and they'd be like, what, I couldn't really think of gratitude. How can we think about it? And so we'd break it down. And I know for me personally, I'd always kind of think about finances, family, and I would think about fitness and fun. Those are my 4, right? I know a lot of people throw faith in there.
That's the F I usually toss it.
I'm not as much of a man of faith. That's not, neither here nor there. It's just not something I do.
It doesn't make any more or less of that. Honestly, I wish I put fun more in it. Fun never gets into the F's for me.
Well, to be honest, faith wasn't there. I was like, well, what else could I do? And I heard someone say fun, and that if you don't remember how to have fun, that you're missing a big part of your life. And I said,
I think
okay,
you're 100% right. Yeah.
I think it's important because especially when you're thinking about it as a dad, looking back, it's like, well, did I have fun? Was I having fun with my kids? Did I, was I showing them? So anyway, that was some kind of framework. And I think the last thing that I would say is, now I think what I do, and I try and stress, is that, I quickly just kind of jot out, even on my note cards here, if you want like a really quick tool. And again, this is what I do. You don't have to do this, but I just draw, little box here. I know it's kind of bright from these lights, little box. And, what I'm basically doing is I'm just going to make sure that for, family, what is the first thought that kind of comes up? And there's so many other notes on here. It's so bright in here. But the first thought, what's my first thought for family that comes up? What's my first thought for finances that comes up, right? What's on my mind? And so if that's on my mind, I either have to be grateful for it, or I have to take care of it because it's now on my mind and I'm worrying about it, right? And then obviously there's like a heart here, like for fitness, and then also for fun, which is like everything I'm doing with passion projects and whatnot. So that's like a quick way for me to remember. That's just me. It's very cathartic for me to write, very cathartic for me to just put things down. And so I definitely do it. But I really think the last thing there is just, you have to, if you want to be someone who's more grateful, that's more thoughtful, that you want to be successful in something, this route, you got to put yourself in the circles of people that are doing it too.
I think it's such an important part that people don't get. And I know there's like the circle of 5 is always something that's talked about, like show me the 5 people around you and that'll show you what you do. And I think in community that plays a big role no matter what, especially in the bariatric community. Like what we do in Busy Bariatrics is it's a lot of like, hey guys, we start our mornings with, we're up early and we're getting our daily intentions in. Like if you surround yourself with people who have overcome a fear of the gym, you have a better chance of overcoming the fear of the gym. If you're around people who are prioritizing their nutrition, you're probably going to pick those things up. And it really is probably the most underrated part in the bariatric or anyone's fitness journey is who you surround yourself with matters so much with what you do, how you act, and how you show up for people. And it's always been the coolest thing with your podcast, as well as, how you walk the walk of having other dads that get it and are driving towards that goal plays such a big role.
Yeah, 100%. I just shared this today, actually, and it's along with what you're saying here. I'm also aware of time, so let me know if you have to jump at all.
No, we're golden.
But I have a newer client, and she's a new mom, just started a new job, and she is, and this is an important part of the story about what she said, is she recently picked up a job, an executive assistant position, working for one of the billionaires in the city over here. Catches your ear, right? Your eyes kind of widen for a second. You're like, okay, that's really interesting. I probably have questions now. When I was talking with her, she told me this. And my question to her was the lifestyle that you see these people living, because she's helping them move right now. So there has to be so many things like skeletons in the closet and whatnot that she's actually seeing. But the lifestyle that they're living, is it having you look at life any different way at all? Like now that you're a new mom and you're busy and whatnot. And she said something that I felt was very profound. And this is around like surrounding yourself with people. And she was like, I can't tell you anything specifically, is what she said. But she said, influence of seeing human potential is incredibly life-shifting. So if you, like, she's like, I don't know if I'm going to be a billionaire. I don't know what's going on, but you know what? I'm seeing how people are being successful. And it reminds me in the moments where I feel as if I'm failing or as if there's something that I'm not going to be able to do, it's probably more than possible. And so when she said that, I was like, that's awesome. And it was also a moment that I was like, okay, she's definitely going to be able to take everything we talk about and implement it right away. So it's really exciting.
It's always fun when they absorb. And I think that was when I started Men's Support Monday and started my Instagram lives. There was a shameless selfishness on my part where I just wanted to interview successful bariatric patients and figure out what makes them tick. What do they get up? What are they eating for breakfast? And if you go back and watch those early episodes, I'm almost like, I'm not writing follow-up questions. I'm literally writing notes of like, I like that they get up early, or I like the fact that like they plan meals and eat with their family. I like the fact that like they shut down at certain times of the day so that they can be present with their wife and kids. And I think so much of that of just who do you surround yourself with, whose voices do you put in. I think it's the beauty of podcasting is you can find people who resonate with you and also understand, and it just plays such a big part on your journey.
Yeah, it's such an easy way to connect. People are so much more willing to hop on a podcast with you than go grab a coffee with you. It's I think a quick email to someone, be like, hey, want to hop on a podcast? Like I get so many less no's than what, hey, do you have any time to like meet up and go grab a coffee? I mean, there's one in person, variable and all that.
Why I started a podcast. I get to talk to professionals like you for an hour, and I'm like, let me get all my questions out with Ryan.
But it always makes me question myself. I'm like, do I like to hear myself talk? And I used to ask myself that a lot. And I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk as much. Then I was like, no. You know what it is? I think I just like to hear myself reflect. And if I don't do that, and that's really what these conversations are. And I think if people aren't having them, you put yourself in a really difficult position. But, even talking with dads, what you just said about, I just wanted to hear what they were doing. Very selfishly, I wanted to talk with other parents, especially within this community that we are part of. And a lot of the community is really built on, things just like, empathy and kindness and accountability. And those are like the big themes in what really takes place in what we're paying attention to. I wanted to know, like, what is making these dads tick? Like, where are they coming from? Where is their childhood showing up today? Because I know that my childhood's showing up today. Like, how are they dealing with it? And then,
but trust me, it does for everyone.
But that's the thing with food, right? You start talking about food with someone and all of a sudden you talk about favorites or least favorites or challenges with food. It goes right back to grandma's kitchen, right? They're talking about it in a second. So for me, it was such an easy transition to start working on a little bit of this passion project that I knew is still somewhat in the same vein of wanting to support someone with their health, whether it's nutrition or if it's just mental health and connection with people. But I love to get into the meat of it and ask those harder questions. This is actually something that I was trying to, when I was thinking about how can I become a better interviewer. And I looked this up. Have you ever heard of the Skin Deep before? The ANS?
No, I have not.
So
but
look it up.
To look at.
So, because I was like, and it's making me think now. I did a research project on how, this was back in college, and I didn't even think about it until somewhat recently, but I did a research project on how can people make the quickest connection? What questions do you ask up front to connect with someone as fast as possible? My research was horrible and I learned nothing from it. But this is basically what that was built on. But it's from the Skin Deep. You can look it up. It's a researcher. It's a pretty well known. I don't remember his name right now, but it's a pretty well known film producer, I believe. And like he has years of this, but basically what he does is he puts two people together, two strangers, very close, and he watches how they connect. And he watches their body language and everything. And really what he boiled things down to was this. And what it is the questions that people had asked that got people into the conversations, into deeper conversations faster. So something like, hey, walk me through your most recent dream. What do you think it was telling you? Like that question for me to ask a stranger, I mean, that's a pretty deep question, but it's
do
also
you want
one.
My most recent dream? Do we want to do this right now?
I mean, Rob, this is what I love to do. I do.
We have to do like a whole separate episode where we just do a couple of these, but I will tell you, like going back to like father, grandfather, this actually, you couldn't have scripted this better. I didn't know that would be the question, but I actually had like a bit of a nightmare of, I saw my dead you were not ready for this to go, but I actually saw my dead grandfather in my parents' living room, and he was talking about, you're working too much, like you need to realize like the things that matter are your family. And it's been something that's been weighing on me for the last 2 weeks. So I have some things in the work that I'm very proud of, but it's uncanny that was the question you asked me that, because I normally don't dream. I usually go to bed and I just wake up and I'm like, I know subconsciously I've dreamed, but that one's been sticking out. So I don't know.
So what do you think it meant? Why is it coming from your grandfather?
Definitely like an idol father figure, owned his own business. The man worked up until his death. Like literally, he shut the doors to his mill where he was a woodworker, and he was dead within 2 weeks. So, it's very symbolic. With all that, but definitely something that has weighed on me. Of like, I work a lot. I think people who meet me never question my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
But am I putting too much of my identity into that? If that makes sense. And is that really the best efforts?
Are you putting too much of your identity into it?
Oh, God, yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Why is it weighing on you then?
Because I'm unbalanced.
What would make it more balanced?
Stepping back from work and spending more time with my wife and kids.
When is that going to start?
December.
Okay, got it. It's nice.
I have clear plan. It's actually like been something that like I have clear plans now, and I'm really excited.
That's amazing. I mean, even you're a hard worker. You had this dream. You started putting these things in place, and now you are making it happen pretty quickly. Was this already happening or no?
No, it been like weighing on me a little bit, and then the more I kept thinking
before
of
the
it,
dream.
and then yes, and then the dream kind of was like okay, why is he showing up now in this form?
Yeah.
And it just really made me start thinking, like, I've been starting to do some things, and I know, as a business owner, the first year and a half, you're so worried about getting it off the ground that it's like, if I would get a ping from my iPhone at 9:30 at night, it's like, ooh, let me make sure I answer that. Or if I get an application and it's like, I need to text this person immediately, because if I don't text them at 9:01, they're going to go find another coach who is going to text them at 9:01.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. That right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got me on that one.
Starting to get better of just, I have a clear shut off at 9:00, and that I am more proactive with both my wife and my kids, like at 9 till 10. But even then, that's a late time in the day to do it.
Yeah. Can I ask one more question about
Of course,
your grandfather showing up?
Yeah.
I'm curious because if you started to make this change before the dream, do you think he's showing up and he's so much asking you to take that time off? Or do you think that it was more of is he giving you
permission,
the confidence that what you're doing is right?
It's a good question. That's probably the best question ever asked. I have to buy these cards. I think this is where we got.
Do it. I mean, but look, even a stranger, if you were to pull that out and be like, the card's asking, I'm not asking. it ends up helping. But it's thank you so much for also just sharing what you did.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It is, and people can get. I think when you can work through something like that, and like someone lets their guard down, I think it brings up the best in people, and I think it also is something. It gives us a chance when we interview people, like on these podcasts. I think it gives us a chance to also ask for help. I think one of the things, and I think this. I don't want to say that you do. It's just you can verify that, but that the best way to help someone else is ask them for help, right? And so a lot of things, like whether it's these questions or spending time on a podcast or just kind of diving in somewhere, I think it just brings up so much of a salient conversation around so many things that connects with so many people. And then it kind of reminds you we're all pretty similar. And I think that's a pretty special thing. So
I appreciate all that.
Yeah.
What was your last dream?
My last dream is, my first answer is jumping right to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what my last dream was. Can I share one that I would remember I go back to that kind of haunts me to this day, though?
That's kind of the beauty of this. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, totally. I always had a dream when I was younger that I was being chased by all the forest animals, and that I was running and I had nowhere else to run, and that I would run to this oak tree and it was opening its mouth and it was going to eat me. And I knew it was going to eat me, but I kept walking towards it like I wanted it to eat me. And to this day, I never understood, one, why these animals are chasing me, why this tree has a mouth, but I never understood. It's a weird thing. Why was I okay with this tree eating me? What does that mean? To this day, I still don't know what that meant. And I had that dream multiple times.
Really? When did the dream start?
Oh, this was young. I mean, I was like, maybe like, I'm thinking back to when I was like 10. At least I'm thinking back to my parents' house when I was like younger. But I had that dream like multiple times. But it wasn't like I didn't care that like, Bambi was chasing me. But it was more the fact that like I was giving in to this tree. And again, to this day, I don't know what it meant, but it does make me think like, okay, don't be so resistant to something. Maybe it was me needing to do that to move on to something else, get away from the problem, which was these animals, right? So yeah, to this day, I kind of think about that. But I'm just woken up so many times throughout the night between my 7-year-old and 3-year-old that I don't think I have time to actually dream. So that's where I'm at.
I will say at that age, it's always something, and it's weird because my wife and I perfectly balance each other out because I'm like, get them out of the bed. I need to sleep. And my wife is like the perfect balance to me. She's like, there will be a day when it'll never happen again. And that's why Kate's probably better than me. But it's a good balance because I'm like, I need REM. And she's just like, you'll REM for the rest of your stuff.
Wait, can I just ask though, you sounding so confident with your wife and balancing each other out, where are you most confident as a dad right now?
I don't even know at this point. As an earner, as the operator of the household, I'd say. I think that's a big struggle. I think, there's always feelings of inadequacy for the people who I am closest with because I do not think I am showing up in enough ways. So I overcompensate.
Do you ever ask them if you're doing enough?
Oh God, no, I don't want that answer.
I'd
be afraid of either answer in that one.
I would be afraid of an answer that was a default answer. If yeah, of course. And I wouldn't know what that would mean, and then it would drive me nuts, right?
That is why there is no good answer to that question.
Yeah. Can I share one thing that I've recently realized that's helped me a ton?
Yeah.
I was reading something about kids. And how old are your kids?
Allie is 12. Stella is 9.
Got it. So you're definitely ahead of me right now. But I was reading something about the 9 most important minutes in a kid's day. Have you ever heard of this before?
No. I'm writing notes already.
The 9 most important minutes. If you want to be a more confident father, parent, whatever you want to be. 9 minutes. It's the 3 minutes after they get up and you see them, the 3 minutes that they come home from school or whatever they were doing, and the 3 minutes before bedtime. Those were found to be the most impactful moments of a kid's day. So I know for me, I was like, I need this because I think in buckets, right? I think, okay, how can I just break this down, make it easier for me? And so I said, okay, I will one, make sure that I give my kids the 3 minutes when they get up if I see them, right? Some days I'm out early, so I don't see them. But I'll give them that 3 minutes, even no matter what's going on. I have 3 minutes. There's no one in the world deserves my 3 minutes more than my girls do. And 3 minutes is not going to shift anything. It's not going to change anything. But 3 minutes is enough time for me and a reminder that whatever is going on in my life, 3 minutes I can push it aside. I can be there where my feet are for 3 minutes, right? So, and it's helped me a ton to be like, okay, like where do I seek out that connection with my kids in the day? That's where I seek it out. So when I look back at it, I'm in survival mode. Okay, at least I'm doing those, right? And I feel really good. But the best thing for me is now whenever they come to me throughout the day, and obviously they need to know that they can't always interrupt me. But I always say, I definitely have 3 minutes. I had 3 minutes then. I have 3 minutes before. Okay, I have 3 minutes now. It doesn't take that long. And it's allowed me to be that much more present with them. And that's made me a more confident father.
I actually can go 2 for 3 of this right now. I love that. Ryan, as always, I know we're getting close to the end and we could do this forever, but like I always walk away from our conversations wiser and more learned. And I just want to appreciate that for you. So again, thank you so much for coming on. I now have really bad lightning round questions that I feel shitty even asking because it's like, well, we cover these big profound ones. I'm like, here's 5 basic questions I ask everyone who comes on the podcast. Can I rapid fire you real quick? And
I am honored to have any questions thrown at me. I love questions.
Cool. They're all base level questions compared to everything that we just covered. So for Busy Bariatrics, the busy is our framework of how we do everything. The B stands for building habits. What's the best habit you've built around nutrition or your life that you're proudest of?
Probably preparation. I know it's a boring one, but I would say, I grew up, I know it says rapid fire. I grew up probably with some strange food insecurity. And so me right now, every Sunday, I'm food shopping and I'm setting us up for the week. That's probably my number one goal.
Love it.
Best thing.
U is for understanding nutrition. If you could get everyone to automatically learn something about nutrition, what would it be?
My head goes, and I know because I would say that calories matter. And I say that with all the empathy in the world. I do. But if we can accept that, I think that's going to be the best thing. The next thing that I would want is this, is that people get paid a lot of money to understand how to get you enjoying food. And it's no wrong. Chefs do the same thing. But now that you know that people are able to manipulate flavors and tastes and textures, and you know that you can become addicted to it, now what are you going to do?
So true. Wow. See, you're going to go deep on all these. I love it.
I'm so sorry. It's so not rapid fire, is it?
No, it's better. These are like profound, and it's like literally watching like Barry Bonds all juiced up, just hitting things out of the park. It's kind of fun.
Goodness.
You are on the empathetic steroids is what we will call it. And guess what? We're not going to piss test you at the end of this, so it's actually all good. I kid. S. Favorite way to stay active?
My favorite way to stay active is going to be, I got to go back to something that I've learned myself recently. It's part of this like Habit 24 thing. And I realized it is, if I can pick 4 movements, any movements, and I can just do 24 of them, whatever. And then my goal after that is, 4 rounds at most, 1 round at least. That's it. That's been my favorite way to stay active because it takes so much pressure off of me, and I know that it shows results. And again, it's evidence-based, based on how much you do. As long as you know how to do it safely is what I think that's the important part. But that has been my favorite way to stay active because it's really simplified things and it showed the results. And that's been great for me. That's where I'm at right now.
Why is showing up for yourself? How do you do it?
It's a tough one. Because my first answer is I don't know. And it's probably the more emotional one because I don't know how to a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I would say this is that I've probably only had like one best friend in my life that really shook me to the point where I was like, oh wow, like I could say anything to you. And I recently picked up 2 new friends in this data group that we've been talking like probably 3 years now. Like I would call them my best friends. I would say that the way that I take care of myself is by reminding myself that I've built that relationship, and that takes a lot of work for me. And so if I can turn to them, and I will indulge myself in just being able to know that I can open up to them and share anything. And that is very cathartic. And I feel as if I'm just so honored to be able to have those people around me. So that's how I think I take care of myself.
Perfect. Final one. We had an exclamation point for it. Favorite healthy source of dopamine, then I promise we will kick off on this.
Wait, favorite source of what?
Healthy source of dopamine that you love.
Dopamine?
Yeah.
Does it have to be healthy?
Yes.
It
That's
does?
the whole point.
That's the whole
Yeah,
point?
because for the bariatric community, like we all know how to use food trucks and alcohol pretty well.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Trust me, those are all the good ones. That's why we work on it.
I would say the healthiest form of dopamine, I'm going to give you 2. One is going to be coffee. So it's going to have to be caffeine. Now, you can call it healthy or not, but I'm going to have to put it there because it's something I enjoy. I know it benefits my life in so many ways and it benefits my performance. But I would say the other one is this, a cheese board with different meats. This is it because if you put me in front of a charcuterie board, that could be my meal every single day. I'd be totally fine with it. And I'm not going to deem that unhealthy.
As an Italian, you put cured meats on a piece of wood. Like, that's my dream come true. My own personal hell would be I have to spell it in order to eat off. So on that happy note, Ryan, as always, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Please, you guys, you can head over to, probably I'm most active on socials, so Food is Fuel NYC on most socials right now. And please, if there are any dads, it's a little bit of a shameless plug, but we are live every single morning. It's under VDads, but we are on My Daily Dad. We're on Twitch, but we're on YouTube. We're live on X. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Instagram every single morning. So if you guys want to head over there, hear a little bit of a great way to connect with other dads. I want that for everybody. Head on over. 8:30 Eastern. 8:30 Eastern.
Perfect. Ryan, cool. As always, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform that you listen to, and please go over and subscribe on YouTube. If you do, you are eligible to win one of our free weekly giveaways from one of our sponsors. So, as always, keep getting busy. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy.